Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In this video, it's going to be a little bit different, as this is going to be either my third or fourth Q&A video, which, as you can tell, I haven't done a lot of them, and my memory's a little bit off, so I'm not exactly sure, but I think this might be the fourth, but it could also be the third Q&A of the channel. Either way, I thought this would be a perfect time to do so, as our community has grown quite a lot since our last one, and we have the Dragonflight expansion reveal, which brings a lot of gold making questions as well. So I asked people on the community page of my YouTube channel as well as in my Discord, and I just asked for people to, submit their questions, and I have a pretty good list of them, so thank you to everybody who submitted one. I'm pretty sure I am going to be able to hit all of them in this video, but some of these are related to the new expansion, some of these are related to Shadowlands, general gold making, and even about the channel itself. So hopefully you take something valuable away from this video, and without further ado, I won't keep you waiting and we can get right into it. And the first question that we have, we're going to be starting with the little bit broader kind of gold making questions and channel questions just about my personal self. And so the first one is by Natalia. Also, future reference, I'm sorry if I pronounce any of these names wrong, but they ask, sorry if you've already answered this, but what do you do with your gold? Do you collect anything in a game? And to be honest, I have a pretty boring answer to this question. Honestly, at this point in time, I'm really just hoarding my gold. Of course, at the start, my motivation was to be able to pay for the game, being able to buy a WoW token every month, and that led into being able to buy, the next expansion with gold as well. And then I also bought, like, Call of Duty, I think it was the Cold War one, whatever's on the Blizzard, not the newest, but, like, the first ever COD that came onto the Blizzard launcher, whatever it was. I did pick up that edition as well with gold. So honestly, besides, like, being able to continue playing WoW, there's not really much that I do with my gold. In terms of in-game, I don't really collect anything besides the gold itself. I feel like it's just kind of a number that's growing, and I keep just, wanting to do the process, and I end up with more. But I feel like all of my goals have been pretty settled at the moment, and I guess I'm just waiting until maybe a new, 10 million mount comes along or something that I'm able to spend. But at the moment, I really am just kind of holding on to it, and I don't really collect anything. The next question we have is by Dark, and they ask, which I guess this kind of goes along with the first question, is how do you not get bored of the game? I always leave for 3 to 4 months, then come back for one or half of it. And surprisingly, there are times that I do truly get bored of the game, especially as somebody who doesn't play a ton of current content. I think it helps me, but also hurts me a little bit. Like, I'm not in a raiding guild, I don't have a group of friends that I actively always do Mythic Plus with, anything like that. So most of the time, whenever I'm playing, I don't really have to put my full attention into it. For example, like for gold making, yes, you have to sit there and like post and cancel, but it's not really like a game that you need like your full attention on, right? Like I can be watching YouTube, I can be playing, a Switch game, like on the actual Switch itself, doing so many other things and also being able to cancel, restock. That's kind of what I like about gold making, and I think that's kind of the helpful thing about not getting bored, is that I always am doing something quote-unquote boring, which I don't think gold making is boring, but in, most people's eyes, sitting on the auction house all day is not, a normal way to play the game. So I think having a simple task that I always do allows me to not get bored because, I can do other things. And of course, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of time where I will log on, simply post the items, and then log off for the day. Yes, I kind of play every day, but not really. It can be like 2 hours, or it can be literally 10 minutes. Moving on, we have another question which fits. This is perfect. I did not plan this, but perfect questions we have by Rain, and they ask, do you play any other games? If so, what type? And will we be seeing any of them on the channel? So I do play a ton of other games than WoW. Of course, WoW is kind of my main focus just because I can play it every day and not get super bored. But I do have a Steam account, and of course I have all of my, actual games besides WoW on Steam, and I also have a Nintendo Switch. So I am currently playing through, I finished Xenoblade Definitive Edition on my Switch a few months back, and so I'm finally starting Xenoblade 2 because Xenoblade 3 has been announced, which I do like that series so far. I also picked up Pokemon Arceus whenever it came out. I'm a big Animal Crossing fan, so I play a lot of Switch games. In terms of Steam, I haven't really played anything recently. I'm a big Terraria fan. I used to be really into Rainbow Six Siege. I'm not really into FPS anymore. Sadly, I used to be very into Fortnite as well before I made WoW content. I made Rainbow Six Siege and Fortnite content, which is a little bit interesting. And yeah, like I played Cyberpunk. I've been playing through the Yakuza series on Steam as well. So kind of a mix, just kind of random. In terms of seeing them on the channel, you will probably not find them on the YouTube. Generally, if I'm ever playing a different game, I will stream it on Twitch. Hasn't happened recently due to school and everything, but normally if you are seeing a different game, it will probably be live stream on Twitch and not shown on the exact channel because YouTube doesn't really like it whenever you switch things up. Moving on, we have a final question kind of regarding personal stuff by Christopher, and he asked why the username Penguin and its origin. So I'm not going to get super in-depth into the username because honestly, it's pretty simple. The R2GT at the end of my name is actually a randomized username. Back in the day, my mom actually created my first actual account because she bought it as a surprise, and she couldn't actually be like, hey, what username do you want? Because it gives away the surprise. So she just randomly generated it, and it came up as R2GT. And then I used that for a while, and I was pretty mad because I was like, this is so dumb. Like, everybody has those cool, Xbox names, and I'm stuck with these 4 random characters. And then eventually it just kind of stuck because you couldn't change your username at that point. And then an issue arose whenever I was trying to create, the same account on a different website, and they had a 5-character minimum. And so R2GT, doesn't fit that. And so I was like, you know what? My favorite animal is a penguin. I've always loved penguins. So I just kind of stuck that in front of it. But that is why the username is Penguin R2GT. For example, if you ever see my usernames on some other games, they normally are just R2GT standalone because that was my original username. But, to this day, people don't recognize or remember the R2GT part. So keeping it simple with Penguin. Alright, so enough of that, and now we're getting into all of the expansion stuff. So I know this is what a lot of people want to hear about, so, we're going to talk about it. And the first one, we have a question by Jerry, and honestly, 3 people kind of asked the same question, Yellow Tiger as well as Brian. Both asked about the upcoming changes with Transmog. So if you guys are not aware, the white/gray quality items are actually going to be able to be transmogrified and actually used in the appearance system, which is super cool. Now, to this day, I believe we do not have an actual date. We don't know if this is going to be coming in 9.2.5 or it's going to be an actual Dragonflight change whenever the expansion comes out. But a lot of people are thinking all right, is this going to be the next thing? Is this going to be actually worth doing? And honestly, I think it's going to be a super interesting change. And honestly, I think it's going to be a pretty big one. The first thing that comes to mind, Brian specifically asked, what should you be targeting? So there's a ton of tailoring, actually crafted tailoring gear that is technically white quality that I actually wear on my bank tune. It's the tuxedo stuff that looks like a suit, looks fancy, and that's actually white items. So I think possibly those will go up in value because they'll actually be able to be transmogrified. I think another thing is that you kind of can't prep for this now, but if you were somebody who prepped for the starter gear changes, Back, very early, pre-Shadowlands, early Shadowlands, they removed the, original starter gear with Exile's Reach and created, the new one. And so a big goal-making opportunity was to stock up on all of the old starter gear in order to resell it, because those appearances are going away. And so if you're somebody who has that stuffed in your bank because you forgot about it or it hasn't been selling, I think now this is going to be a big change. And if you haven't been seeing sales, possibly you're going to see actual sales, and if you forgot about it, it's a perfect time to bring them out. If you actually go to the Wowhead post that talks about this change, a lot of the comments are about starter gear. So a lot of people, like normal players, are thinking about that change, and I think that's something to, take into account if you're somebody who has actually purchased some of those or stockpiled some of those not purchased. Another thing is, I don't exactly know, but the kind of basic tools like the mining pick and the fishing rod and stuff, if those also are able to be transmogged, that's kind of cool for like if you have a fisher, also just cool for like guild bank or bank tunes and stuff. So I'm not a huge farmer myself, but I do think this is going to be an interesting market. And I think there is a pretty big opportunity if you're somebody who likes to farm, or even like the white crafted transmog pieces. I feel like they're going to have a lot more use. Also, Jerry asked about the whelpling pets, and honestly, it might be something that you want to look into if they're really cheap. Of course, everybody kind of likes to, fit in with the new expansion. And of course, we don't really know anything about cosmetics like mounts, new pets coming in. We don't really know what we're getting in Dragonflight, but it could be very interesting if you're able to pick up pets, whether you're going to flip them anyways. You might want to hold on to them and see what they do in Dragonflight. But it could be a market that is pretty interesting, and I honestly will probably look into it more myself, as I have never really prepped in terms of like cosmetic stuff for a expansion before. And in terms of how to get that 500,000 back, whatever you did to get that 500,000, it seems to be working. So, keep doing it, and hopefully you'll return some gold soon. And moving on, we have some more general kind of Dragonflight questions as well. And so Kaz asked, what's your opinion on the new expansion, and what do you think about the new work order system? And overall, I was very hyped about the reveal, especially the professions. I think it is huge. I'll talk about the professions in just a little bit, but I think the expansion looks awesome. Of course, we don't really know anything besides like concepts, so we can't get too excited without a release of alpha or beta, but it does look exciting, and I am, personally excited for it. In terms of the work order system, just to catch you up if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically there's going to be a new system in place from my understanding. Like I said, this could be completely different whenever they actually release an alpha, but people are going to be able to, let's say you are a farmer, or you're somebody who has just done content, and randomly you pick up random lightless silk and random meats around and everything, and let's say you want food. So you can go and place a work order. You have all of the meat that you need. You have everything to craft it. You just don't have the profession. And you can be like, hey, I'll give you, a 50 gold tip if you craft a stack for me. And then a crafter can come around, take your materials, so it costs them nothing except their time, craft it, and they get that, special commission. So I honestly think this is a really cool system. I think it really brings power to the buyers and gatherers. Like, normally if you are somebody like gathering, you do it and you just sell the raw herbs, unless you have another character that has, alchemy or something. Normally, you go farm marrow and then you sell the marrow on the auction house, especially if you only have one character. But if you're able to, use those materials, ask somebody to craft them for you, and you can get it so you can still profitably sell it even after the commission, I think it could be a very big win-win for gatherers. Also, just for general players, like, if you gather stuff, whenever you're leveling or something and you need potions for a raid, give yourself or give, the crafters a commission that's cheaper than the auction house price, and, it makes both sides happy. And without getting so carried away with work orders, I think it's really awesome for new crafters as well. A thing they pointed out in the deep dive was that, or in like the reveal, when they talked about this, people are going to be able to level up their professions without actually needing to buy all the resources. So if you think about it now in current Shadowlands, let's say you do indeed want to do alchemy, you generally have to spend 20 to 25k of your gold for an initial investment of herbs to actually level that profession up. So, 20 to 25k is not a lot of gold at all, but if you're starting out, you might only have 15,000 gold, or 20 to 25k is literally like everything you have. So instead of having to do that initial investment, you can go in work orders and be like, awesome, this person needs a spectral flask, right? Like I need to level up my profession and I need to craft those flasks. So all you have to do is take their already purchased materials, craft it, you gain the skill, you also gain a little bit of, commission income, and, both sides are happy. So I think it's going to make beginner crafters not have to go the gathering route for initial gold, and it's going to be just a lot easier to level up. And that goes into Ferris's question about what are my expectations for the professions revamp. I've kind of already talked about the work orders, but I will say, if you guys haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the profession part of Hazel's interview with Ian. They did an interview like the day after the reveal, or it might have been recorded the day of the reveal, but in the middle section, there is a part about professions, and he actually talks more about it than the deep dive. And so he mentions that the professions are actually going to have a talent tree. And so, if you are a blacksmith, I think he gives the example, if you want to focus on helmets, you can do like the helmet part of the talent tree. However, you can do like part helmet and also part chest piece or something like that. And he also makes note that you are able to max out the tree on a single character and learn everything. So of course that's going to take a ton of time, but you are going to be able to fully max out a profession and specialization, or specializations, I should say, on a character. So I think that's really cool. I was a little bit worried about specializations because, if there's 3 different types of blacksmiths, am I going to need, 3 different characters to get all specializations? And so, seems to be, from what he explained, it's going to be able to be done on one character. It just might take a while. So overall, I'm really excited about the professions. Of course, it's going to be a little bit scary at the start, but, I'm pretty excited. And so Jay comes in with quite a weird question on the scale of square root to blah, 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 blah. How hyped are you for 10.0? And overall, I am very excited. I've talked about the gold making already, but I think the new features are super cool. The only thing I'm a little bit skeptical about is the quality system of materials, because how is that going to work with Old World? And, how complicated is that going to get? Are we going to be dealing with RNG whenever we try to craft, Right now, for example, we're trying to craft the best Crafter's Marks rings. We can attach the missives and the optional reagents to get the best ring possible. But, are we going to be trying to do that same thing? But we can't guarantee it, and we're going to be dealing with RNG because of quality. I don't exactly know. They haven't talked about that system. That's the only thing I'm a little bit scared about. But besides that, I am very hyped. And the last question we have regarding the actual gold making of Dragonflight is, how do you think that the new zones and flying mechanics will affect gathering professions? I think it's going to make a lot of people want to gather more. It's not going to really make a change in markets. I mean, we're not going to see a Dragonflight with no flying, so we're not going to be really able to compare it to if you couldn't fly. So everybody's going to be flying. It's going to be fair game. But As you go on, you'll get better flying, which is kind of unlocking traditional flying, let's say in like Zereth Mortis, where, you know, people can't gather that fast, it's in weird, tough spots to reach, and then slowly, you know, flying is unlocked and it becomes more accessible. I feel like it's going to be like that, but flying is pretty easy to do, and then of course you'll be able to do the routes faster whenever you get upgraded flying. Overall, I think maybe it'll affect the amount of people who choose to gather. I know a lot of people, myself, I could never run around on foot and gather if I had to. Like, if I'm doing gathering farms, it's old world because I know I can fly fast and not deal with mobs. So I think it might make more people gather, which might bring the prices down a little bit for gatherers, but overall, I think we're not going to see a huge difference, and I think it's going to be a good one overall. So moving on to kind of the general gold making stuff, we have 3 more questions to go, and the first one is, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that name, so I'm just going to call you A. I really do apologize, but they ask, when Dragonflight releases, will Shadowlands content, since now it's old world content, still be a viable way to make gold? Obviously, you know, blah blah blah, can the other gold making features, you know, match up? So overall, Shadowlands is definitely going to be a pretty weak old world content. Unlike previous expansions, we have no, like, mounts. You had the, like, Mechagon dungeon mount that came out in BFA, you had the Corehound and Legion, Mechanohog and Wrath, etc., and Shadowlands doesn't really have that. Now, there are a very few transmog items, there's like the candlestick hat or whatever, very weird, like, few cosmetic items from Shadowlands, and you will probably see sales with those. However, they're pretty limited, like the party hat and stuff. So nothing insane, but you know, you could still sell those, as those are strictly just cosmetics. The biggest thing that comes to mind is that drums and the leather bardings will probably still remain good. The leather bardings was also in BFA, and it's the same exact item, but they made a different crafting recipe for Shadowlands. So assuming they don't continue that tradition on, and of course in Dragonflight, I guess we're not going to be really using standard mounts, we're going to be using dragon flying or dragon riding, but for the people who are using traditional mounts, you might see barding still selling, and the drums might still be selling due to Mage Tower. Drums as well, technically all drums from all expansions are equally weighted in the Mage Tower, so people who are familiar with that might continue to use those. Of course, there might be a Dragonflight version, but some people might still buy, you know, the Shadowlands version, we're not exactly sure. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty bad compared to other markets, but there might be a few items. Legendaries are going to be worthless, they're just going to be worthless, just kind of like Legion legendaries, and yeah. Then moving on, we have a question from Dragos, who says, what are the best BFA selling items? I'm currently doing BFA content since I skipped that expansion and I want to make some profits. Thank you, and thanks for everything you post here, amazing work. First of all, thank you so much for the kind words, and BFA is actually a pretty good expansion at the moment. First thing, I'm just going to rapid fire all of these. A lot of these, the reason that they are so good is due to Mage Tower, and some of them are good for leveling. So for Inscription, you have the scrolls, the war scrolls. I believe it's like Battle Cry or Battle Shout, Intellect, and Agility. The 3 war scrolls, those are really good for the Mage Tower. Then you also have the Inscription Compendiums. They are trinkets, which are good for leveling tunes. All of Alchemy is pretty good for the Mage Tower. There's a spreadsheet down below. It's called Legion Time Walking. You can check that for all of the BFA potions that I'm talking about, but majority of them are really good. Along those lines, if you go to that spreadsheet, some of the Accords, which are enchants from BFA, are also very good for the Mage Tower. And also the Kraken's Eyes, as well as the Leviathan's Eyes, are very good gems. I normally cut all 3 versions. Yet again, Mage Tower related. And so personally, I buy the uncut versions and then sell them, or cut them and then sell the cut version. if they're cheap on your server. If not, you probably will have to prospect for the uncut gems, but Kraken's Eye and Leviathan's Eye. So that's kind of a rapid fire, but hopefully some of those will be good on your server. My favorite would be the compendiums and the gems. And lastly, to finish this video off, this is probably my favorite question just because it got me really thinking, and I apologize if this is a long answer, but this is from Mr. Borges, who asked, what is the biggest lesson we as a goldmaking community has learned during Shadowlands, and what is the biggest step to improve our goldmaking forward into Dragonflight? And so I'm going to be focusing on that main question, and I thought about this earlier today before recording, and it really got me thinking, and I think we can all agree that we've all made some big mistakes and have learned some big things during Shadowlands, whether that's legendary related or whatever, buying stuff that you shouldn't have. We've all made those, pretty big mistakes. However, as a gold making community, I think the biggest lesson that we've learned is how important information is. The ability to have access to very volatile information and important information is a huge bonus. And what I mean by this, to give you some examples, is let's just start very early before Shadowlands even released with the Relics of the Past. So if you guys do not know what that is, basically it was an optional reagent that was getting added to the game, and it changed the eye level of old world items. But the thing about gold making is that before Shadowlands released in PTR, those specific relics were making a ton of gold via vendor shuffling. So, some of them required simple things like linen cloth and silk cloth and all of those mage weave cloth, like all those things that, are selling on the auction house for silver. And because somebody, relayed the news that the PTR, you can, buy this cloth for silver, craft this into a relic that sells for, like a good amount of gold, it was like, oh wow, this is going to be the best vendor shuffle ever. So, of course, the word got around, and everybody started buying up these random, weird, vanilla materials, and all of a sudden, Mage Weave went from, 5 silver to 5 gold apiece. And it was a very weird change, and of course, whenever you get news like that, it's too good to be true, and right when the expansion actually released and the update came out, they nerfed it. And so the relics, they completely crashed the vendor price of the relics, so the, vendor shuffle no longer worked. And what I bring in the knowledge part is that if you are somebody who wasn't actively checking Wowhead, watching streamers, being in Discord, checking the Reddit, anything like that on Twitter, following gold makers, anything related to gold making, then you possibly were not keen on the change. And so, everybody who saw the change as fast as possible tried to, sell everything that they just bought to hopefully not take a huge loss. And if you are somebody who still thought that the shuffle was actually good, you were probably like, oh wow, somebody just posted all of this for so cheap, I'm gonna go shuffle it. And so you bought these people's like panic sells, and then you eventually realized, oh, the shuffle's dead, and then now you're too late. So I feel like that was a big example of something where you need to be able to get notified as soon as possible. This happened yet again in early Shadowlands with the Shrouded Cloth vendor shuffle. A lot of vendor shuffles got nerfed at the beginning of Shadowlands, but what happened is that I don't exactly remember if it was a data mined hotfix or it was data mined on the PTR for patch 0.5, 9.0.5. I can't exactly remember the circumstance, but, shuffling got super popular. The vendor shuffling video is one of the most popular on my channel from early Shadowlands, and so everybody was doing these shuffles, including the old BFA linen cloth shuffle, which basically, bots and everybody was spamming all of this linen cloth from doing BFA mount, botted, farms, and there's just a ton for cheap, and you could shuffle it, craft it into an item, sell it for profit. And so all of a sudden, somebody found in the data mine that they're changing the vendor price of those items, and it was a very quick transition. You only had a few days. And within those few days, basically, if you had a huge stockpile, you had to shuffle all of it before the change, because then you would no longer make gold. So if you were, yet again, somebody who is not on checking Wowhead, and Wowhead is not always reliable for gold making stuff. So if you're not in, active Discord communities, not checking the WoW Reddit, anything like that, you might have missed that, or you might have found out, 3 days later than the official announcement, and then you don't have enough time to shuffle, or you didn't shuffle at all. So I think that's a really big thing, is that Blizz is making all of these quick changes that you really need to be notified for. Yet again, I could keep going on for this list, but the last one I want to talk about is Korthite crystals. And so overnight, Korthite went from like 1,500 gold to 200 gold apiece, because Blizz stealth, buffed Korthite. And they also did it with Essentia. So, if you are not in the Discords, yet again, if you're not getting knowledge from other gold makers or people who found out things through others, etc., you might still, your server hasn't crashed yet or something like that, and you were buying at these ridiculous prices, and then within a few hours, you lost 3/4 of all of your gold because it crashed completely. Or you knew it was about to crash, so you could quickly panic sell your stockpile to hopefully regain some gold. So honestly, the biggest thing I would say, and the biggest thing that we could improve with gold making, is being able to willingly share knowledge with each other, and also, putting yourself out there to receive that knowledge. And this is going to sound like the biggest sponsor ever, but this is what I'm going to say. If you guys have yet to join a Discord community or anything, please, if you want to, join ours, because I feel like I always try to help everybody as fast as possible, let you guys know what exactly is happening, and giving my suggestions to you. So, of course, there's so many gold makers out there. You could join everybody's Discord, whatever you'd like, but if you want to start, I highly recommend joining my Discord just to start and just get into the topic of gold making. Of course, you do not have to. That sounds like a huge ad, but that, I feel, is a very big lesson for all of us. We are not enemies of each other. Yes, sometimes we compete with each other, but at the end of the day, there's plenty of room for everybody to succeed. Don't make enemies with people, make friends with people, help each other out. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. This was quite a long one, and I apologize for that, but I do like to talk, and you guys will know that if you guys watch these streams, but I do like to talk, and once again, just thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you to everybody who, had their question on here. Hopefully this was useful to all of you. And as always, have a good day.